So we were in Roswell, New Mexico, working on another dispatch, and I ran into a guy named Alan. He's from England, and he works for the government there. And the stuff he told me really kind of blew me away, really hit home. And it's worth the 15 minutes of your time to hear it. Alan, how does England feel about Donald Trump?
I think they're nervous and worried. I think a lot of people agree with his domestic policies, that is getting illegal immigration under control, sorting out too much welfare, too much government. They agree with that. That's sensible, because that's what we're doing in Europe. I think in terms of foreign policy, they are very worried because we see ourselves as part of one NATO, one democratic world grouping. And so I think some of the statements he's made are a bit worrying. One big issue we've got is Ukraine, where obviously it's a European country. I accept Donald Trump's position that it's Europe, and Europe needs to take care of it. And that's a fair point. He's right when he says that Europe needs to spend more on defence. Again, that's absolutely correct. We should. We shouldn't be relying on American taxpayers to fund us. So he's right on that. But it's just, I think, the feeling that we need to work together to solve these problems, not against each other, because the real enemies, I think, seems to be China and Russia rather than each other.
How bad is immigration in Europe and in England? We have a problem here, and I know that you've said that you all support what he's doing with the deportations and stopping the illegal immigration here. How bad is it where you live?
In England, in Great Britain, or United Kingdom is the official name of the country. England is part of the United Kingdom. It's out of control. It's out of control. The last year for which we've got full figures, net immigration, that is all the ones going out and coming in, the net immigration was 1 million, nearly 1 million. That would be, I think, 23, 24 that would be. And that is the size of Britain's second biggest city, Birmingham. You know, that is simply unsustainable. And both governments, the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, that they've been in government for the last 20, 30, 40 years, they're responsible. And people are very frustrated, they're very angry because they see these immigrants, they're coming across, the illegal ones I'm talking about at the moment, they're coming across the channel in boats, they get put up in 3, 4-star hotels, free access to the health service, and people are just angry. And in my own city where I live, we've got 4,000 people on the housing waiting list. That's out of a population of just over 100,000. 4,000 people on the council waiting list. We're putting people into bed and breakfast accommodation, short term, and we've got these immigrants who have just been put into a local hotel, 120. The hotel has been taken over, and the government's told us we've got to take another 261 put into private rented accommodation, which we don't have, but because the government is paying, the government will crowd out and push up the prices for everybody else. So it's a real problem, and this is just a relatively small city, south of England, cathedral city, typical English if you like, facing these problems. And in the urban areas it's 10, 100 times worse. It's out of control, and to have 1 million net people coming into the country in the last year for which we've got figures, shows it's out of control, completely out of control. And that's the same in Europe. I mean, look at the political situation in France, Germany, Italy, Holland, Austria, Sweden.
The immigrants are going all the way up to Sweden?
Oh yes. Well, Sweden had a very short-sighted policy of being very liberal and taking them all in. They're now regretting it, because many of them are unemployed, they're engaged in all sorts of nefarious activities. And so there's a strong right-wing party that's now emerged in Sweden. And Sweden and Denmark as well has quite a right-wing government, and Norway. And Sweden, but so this is now hitting the whole of Europe. It's not just a peripheral problem anymore. It's affecting every single country in Europe, and Britain in particular. You would have thought Britain would be safe because we're an island to start with. We're off the northwest coast of Europe, and of course these immigrants are coming from Asia, the Middle East, Africa. So they're coming across all up north, coming across the Mediterranean. And then they're going to Calais, which is the nearest bit of France to England. And then they're waiting, and they get on boats illegally, of course, coming across the channel. Then what do? We go out and pick them up. We pick them up, give them free health checks the minute they arrive, put into 3 or 4-star hotels, all their special dietary requirements met, and so on and so on. They're all on welfare payments as well. And people are angry and they're furious.
Why are they taking them in and giving them free stuff?
Oh, they say, well, it's the law, international law, domestic law, this, that, and the other. Well, the answer to that is very simple. You change the laws, don't you? And you implement the laws you've got. We're not implementing the laws we've got. I complained recently to the police that these illegal immigrants were working, and any illegal immigrant coming to Britain is not allowed to work. By law, they may not work. But they are, they've all got jobs. And I complained to the police. And the police said to me, oh, well, it's racist to make a complaint like that, so we're not going to do anything about it. So, of course, most people give up. And this is the frustration. It's not as though anybody's doing anything about it, because they're not.
Where are they mostly coming from? Because I hear that the Muslim Middle Eastern population is really taking over the culture of Europe. It's like they're intentionally trying to outpopulate the Europeans and take over. Is that true?
Well, so as far as Britain's concerned, the biggest countries are countries like Pakistan, Eritrea, sort of the eastern, northern bits of Africa, a lot coming from Libya, Tunisia, and the Italians are trying to do a deal with the Libyans to stop them getting into Italy in the first place. And then the Middle East, they're coming from all countries in the Middle East, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, all of them. And of course, when they arrive, these are the countries they claim to come from, but we don't know because they've destroyed all their papers. And they're not what we call asylum seekers. They're economic migrants. I mean, an asylum seeker for me is somebody seeking freedom from persecution and war. They're the Ukrainians. We've taken the Ukrainians in, and I fully support that. So they are genuine refugees. There, the men are standing and they're fighting, and the women and the children have come over for safety. So I support that. I welcome that. They're genuine refugees. But the ones who I'm talking about are, on the whole, illegal, and they're economic migrants. They're not. They claim all sorts of things, and of course you can't prove otherwise. And given our laws and the people who make the decisions are soft, and it's easier for them, overburdened with work, to say, oh yes, just come in. It's easier. And if they don't, then they've got 2 or 3 forms of appeal on government-paid lawyers. So the lawyers love it. I mean, they can keep people in our country for years, or even indefinitely, with the number of appeals they get. So people who shouldn't be in the country are still in the country.
And they're coming over because their home countries are poor and there's not opportunity. I mean, they're refugees of a bad government and a bad situation, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair, yes. I mean, obviously, they're coming for a better life, and I can't blame somebody for wanting a better life for themselves and their children, their families. But Britain can't be the repository for hundreds of thousands, now touching millions of people who just want to come for a better life. We've got to look, the first job of any government is to secure the borders of the country and to maintain economic stability and prosperity. But as I say, I gave you a particular example of where I live, a city of about 105,000. You've got 4,000 people on the housing waiting list, that is to say, on the council's list, waiting to be accommodated. You've got people who are in bed and breakfast accommodation when they should be accommodated properly, and people in short-term accommodation who should be accommodated properly. But the accommodation does not exist. And the first call of these illegal immigrants is on accommodation, and they're getting priority. I mean, one hotel is completely full of illegal immigrants, and now we've been told 261 more illegal immigrants have got to be housed by Worcester. That's what the government is trying to disperse them around the country. But we don't have the accommodation for our own people. Now, who can tell me if that is fair? I don't know anybody who thinks that is fair, except a few liberal bleeding heart. Well, I'll leave it there. But of course they're never affected by this, are they? They live in the big houses away from it all. They don't mind. They can show us their consciences. Fine. They've got what they want. Pull up the drawbridges, and these people, they will come and they will have to go somewhere else, won't they? They don't live in big detached houses in avenues where these immigrants are going. And the people who are worried see it for themselves. So they know what's going on. And people say it's some kind of right-wing conspiracy. It's not right-wing. It's not left-wing. It's just what people deserve and what should happen. These labels, left and right, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. I mean, I can't see what's left or right wing about allowing 1 million people into your country when you can't house your own people. Yeah,
the housing shortages are a big deal. You're going through the exact same thing we're doing. Is there like a Europe, England first movement, France first kind of thing that we have over here now, America first? Is that starting to spill over from here over there?
Well, I've been a student of politics for many years, a practitioner, teacher, and Britain is normally about 4 years behind America in political thinking and political activity and behaviour. We're about 4 years behind America. Now you've got Trump, America first, or make America great again. And back home, at the moment, the two big parties, Labour and Conservative, are totally discredited. The Conservatives just last year lost the election for the biggest election loss in their entire history. The Labour Party won on a very small vote, and now they're almost as unpopular as the Conservatives. So there's a new party that's coming up, which people need to and are thinking about, called Reform, which is led by a chap called Nigel Farage, who's a buddy of Donald Trump. So that is something everybody's watching, because they're taking votes from the Conservative Party and from the Labour Party. In other words, they're taking votes from left and right. So it belies all this, is it left, is it right wing? It's not, it's neither, it's just a...
It's a sensible party, a populist party.
Yeah, it is, but it's reflecting what people think. And if parties don't reflect what people think, people eventually won't vote for them. So it's up to the parties to change, adapt or die.
Well, I wish you guys luck in Europe. You need to continue to enforce your laws like we're starting to. Hopefully that what we're doing here with our enforcement of immigration, that spills over into Europe and that movement continues, and we can just get countries back to the way that they are supposed to be, where you're enforcing the law and legal immigration instead of just allowing ourselves to be overrun.
Yeah, I mean, history has always been a movement of peoples, but we're now, Britain is full. I'm not against immigration at all. We need doctors, we need nurses, we need care workers.
Oh, sure, yeah. Some of the best scientists and doctors are from Asia and Africa and South America. Some of our finest, and we do need those bright people to come here, definitely. And we need workers, but there's a certain way to do it.
Exactly. It's not about immigration as such. It's about the number of immigrants. It's the type of immigrants, and the fact that so many are coming over illegally. That's what it's about. We've always had a movement of peoples, and I'm not against that. I'm an internationalist. But there comes a point where if you're full, you can't get any more people in.
And you can't take care of your own.
Exactly.
You take your own first, and then we can help you in a minute. It's like when the mask drops, they always tell you when you're flying, take care of your own self first, then help the person next to you if there's an emergency. Yeah,
that's right. That's a very simple principle, and I think it's a principle everybody understands. But now, as I say, the situation is out of control, it's as bad as, almost as bad as it's probably going to get.
Thanks, Alan.
Pleasure.